From the peaks of Mount Chiliad to the shores of Vice City, Grand Theft Auto has taken us on some wild rides across a variety of colourful locations. But if we were to take each game and judge them purely on their open world map, which one would be considered the best? For this video, I'm not going to focus on graphical fidelity. I'm looking at things like the setting, the tone, the vibe, all the little things that make the open world worth immersing yourself in. Will your favourite take the top spot? Let's find out. Starting us off, we have GTA 3. This game introduced the world to Liberty City from a 3D perspective. At the time, it was a groundbreaking achievement in open world design. As you can see by today's standards, this open world is rather basic and devoid of the detail we'd see in most modern open world games. But at the time, the sights and sounds captured my imagination. I'd drive through the streets and I'd see things like the train overhead and the NPCs going about their day, and my imagination would fill in the gaps to paint a world that was teeming with life. For me, GTA 3 was just like the top-down games that came before it. It was more about player freedom in exploring the sandbox and less about the story. And even to this day, I'll still boot it up and roam the streets and pay a visit to some memorable locations. In terms of variety, areas like Chinatown and Little Italy offer distinct areas in the opening parts of the game. But it's not until we unlock access to the bridges that the game's world truly opens up. Areas like Staunton Island provide a more bustling downtown vibe, with towering skyscrapers and brightly lit billboards and signage in the heart of the city. As you'd expect, each area offers a different tone with different NPCs, cars, and gangs occupying the streets. Speaking of NPCs, they help to add a nice layer of detail to the environments, and their dialogue breathes some personality into the world. To add to that, the radio stations more than played their part in selling us on the world that Rockstar had created, with a collection of great songs and memorable DJs and radio ads.
See, the great thing about this country is you can sue anyone for pretty much anything, and you'll probably win.
GTA 3 is a classic for a reason. It's a great game that holds up surprisingly well, and one I'm sure I'll keep coming back to. Coming in at number 4, we have GTA 5. Now, this will surprise a lot of you, I'm sure, but again, I'm not judging the games based on graphical fidelity. There is no question that GTA 5 is the biggest and most ambitious game in the franchise, with incredible visuals, a great story, and a rich and open world to explore. Areas like Sandy Shores and its surrounding areas were key highlights for me. While the long drive from the city to the sea is a bit long and tedious, the difference in scenery offers a great deal of variety, and that's not just with the landscape. Drive for long enough and you'll enter different parts of the state where the radio stations and presenters will change too. It's a great little detail and the sort of thing Rockstar built their reputation on. The reason it isn't higher on my list is because although it's the most dense and detailed open world in the franchise, it just didn't click like some others did. Whether it's the NPCs, the music, the tone and vibe, or the feeling of navigating from point to point, I can't quite put my finger on it. I just know that once I was done with the main story and had seen what the world had to offer, I didn't hop back to drive around and soak it all in like I had with previous entries in the franchise. I think it may have something to do with the scope of the world. It is a little too large for me to want to explore on foot or by car. Granted, you can fast travel via the taxi system, but that is against what the list is hoping to determine. What is the best open world to explore, to drive through and to enjoy? For me, GTA 5, while an incredible game, didn't offer much reason for me to return just for the open world. The mystery around Mount Chiliad was incredibly interesting at the time, but the lack of payoff was a letdown. It is a triumph in open world design for how realistic it is, but to that same point you end up with large areas that feel empty, with long winding roads that offer very little reason to spend more time navigating them than is needed. At number 3, we have GTA Vice City. Set in the GTA universe's version of Miami during the 1980s, it should come as no surprise that this game is all about its vibe. The first thing people mention when referencing the game is the music. It is perhaps one of, if not the best soundtrack in a video game, and it really sets the tone for everything else. There's a nice amount of variety to the map too, and the game puts its best foot forward by thrusting you into the best parts of the city first. The stunning beachfront properties with their glowing signs create a stunning visual that always impresses no matter how many times I drive those streets. As we progress in the game, the map does a good job of showing multiple sides of the city, like nightclubs, the local country club, luxurious mansions, sandy beaches, and the city's large stadium. Regardless of the part of the town you're in, the fashion, the cars, the tone, everything feels like it was ripped from my favourite movies and TV shows of the era. One of my favourite things to do in the game is to hop into a drop top and vibe while roaming the streets looking for many hidden packages across the map with nothing but the sights of the city and the sounds of the radio to keep me company. Much like GTA 3, Vice City is not as rich and as detailed as games released today, but the game's tone and the vibe still manage to do some heavy lifting. It's been over 20 years since the game came out, and yet the open world still manages to keep me engaged. If you've yet to play Vice City, you really should check it out. In at number 2, we have GTA 4. This game took us back to Liberty City and reimagined the environment with a greater emphasis on replicating its real-world counterpart, New York City. The result is a world that feels gritty and diverse with memorable locations that are packed with colourful characters. With GTA 4, Rockstar took Grand Theft Auto in a new direction. Gone were the cartoonist, chunky-looking visuals of the past, and in its place was an open world rooted in reality. From the grey, muted tones of the many neighbourhoods below elevated train lines to the bright lights of downtown Liberty City, this concrete jungle offers a wealth of diverse areas to explore from the ground up or from up above. As was common with GTA games, you had to progress through the story to unlock all of the map. While it was frustrating for those of us that wanted to explore the areas freely, it did help to build anticipation for the more recognisable locations. I personally love the game's interpretation of Times Square. Once fully unlocked, the city is a joy to drive through. I still love weaving in and out of traffic, and the sense of speed adds to the excitement as I see how long I can go before I inevitably hit something and send Nico flying. Which brings me to another aspect of the game that I look back on with great fondness, and that's the ragdoll physics. Much like Red Dead Redemption, the addition of these physics in the game introduced a fun and unique element to each encounter. Watching NPCs stagger and fall in somewhat realistic ways never got old, and it still holds up to this day. Also, I know these are small details, but I love that you could whistle for a cab. And I still think it's really cool that if you needed a cop car for a mission, or if you just wanted one, you could call 911 and wait for them to arrive. And then you could just take it. Having a cell phone that actually worked in the world blew my mind. Even the stuff that should be annoying, like when your car took too much damage, it just stopped working. It was realistic and it helped immerse me in the world. I know GTA 5 built on these ideas, but they were introduced here, and it's here where I had the most fun with them, and I still do. I love getting into fights with the NPCs near a cop and then watching them get arrested. It's the small details that wowed me, and as I said, it's probably been done better elsewhere, but this was always going to be a list teeming with nostalgia, and I have a ton for GTA 4. This game is awesome. And at number 1, we have GTA San Andreas. Set in the early 90s, this open world was a sandbox like no other when it released back in 2004. It's a game I still play to this day and is packed with variety and opportunities to cause chaos. When I think about the open world that should be at the top of this list, it has to be the one I spent the most time in, and I'm talking outside of the story mode, just free roaming and enjoying what the world has to offer. While it was a close call, San Andreas took the top spot because I spent countless hours around Los Venturas evading the police. I would then lead those same officers up to Mount Chiliad and watch as they careened off the edge. I would go ghost hunting, I searched for Bigfoot, and yet I always found time to head back to the Grove. I can't think of many games that make such a good and lasting impression when you first jump in. Grove Street is an iconic location that perfectly reflected the vibe it was going for. If GTA Vice City was Scarface, GTA San Andreas was Boys in the Hood. And that's only a section of the map. Venture beyond Grove Street and you'll explore the wider city. Go even further and you'll eventually end up in San Fierro, with its tall buildings and steep streets reminiscent of San Francisco. Beyond that, you'll discover the enticing bright lights of Los Venturas, where you can try your luck at a few casino games. And in between it all, there's small towns in amongst countrysides and forests. I know GTA 5 reimagined this setting, and there's no doubt that its open world is better in many technical ways that can be measured. Yet GTA San Andreas has something about it that just keeps me coming back. As I mentioned earlier, I think where GTA 5 doesn't quite work for me is in its scope, and I think GTA San Andreas gets it just right with the space and time it takes to get to each of the 3 distinct areas. On top of that, navigating the highways and byways is perhaps one of the best parts of the experience, thanks largely to an amazing soundtrack. When it comes down to it, the game is over 20 years old and I'm still playing it with the same childlike grin on my face that I had at the time. There is no doubt that nostalgia is playing a big role here, and if I'm fortunate enough to have kids, this will be the one I'm most keen to share with them. Put simply, GTA San Andreas is timeless. So there we have it, the best open worlds in the Grand Theft Auto franchise. Where will GTA 6 land on this list when it's released later this year? Only time will tell. Let me know what you thought of this list in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more gaming content.